Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hello fellow writers. Today I'm finally getting to talk about my fantasy novel that I've been revising the second half. I mentioned in my writing updates or just updates video that I realized how much was missing from that fourth draft. In the first four drafts of this story, I've been writing it as if it was a race, that these two groups are just fighting against each other, but it just never felt right because that's not the actual story, right? The real story is really about loyalties, distorted loyalties, and how to overcome those distorted loyalties, even if it means losing the people you were loyal to. And that's like very specific to a lot of the characters, but one in particular, and she has a lot of the chapters are from her POV, and it's just kind of hard sometimes figuring out, okay, what is the issue here that everyone has? Like, all of these characters, is someone really entitled to the power? What is the problem here, and where did it stem from, and how did it develop into now everyone's mad at each other, everyone hates each other, and they're willing to kill and harm in order to get this power because they think only one of them should have it. But what if it wasn't just for one, but for all? And they never considered that because there was this loss of connection between these groups. And so they saw themselves as just so far separated from each other that there were no threads of connections left to pull them into one community. And so with this second half, I really focused on how the characters misunderstood what this power was, and that they are realizing and finding out this power had a very specific purpose in the land that they live in with each other. It was supposed to be for the good of the community and never a power for selfish reasons. And it's like I was also developing it as I was writing, because I think I'm more of a pantser or like a plantser, very much a discovery writer. I gotta write it out to be able to even see the story. But I was looking towards the beginning, when this power first emerged. How did that happen? And what were the intentions after that for this community, for these people living in this land? And this takes place in a fictional country in southern Africa, in between Zambia and the Congo, on like the eastern side. And it's the characters realizing that they're much more similar than they are different, and that they don't really need to fight. I wanted to write a villain that people could sympathize with, but I think with these people, I don't know if you can really sympathize with them in a way, but I see where their anger is, and that anger is valid. The character that I was talking about, she's a mayor, and so she's used to being a leader. She's used to having this all this responsibility, and people like admiring her, and her feeling like, yes, I'm a boss, like I know everything, I know all the right choices. And you really see, I don't even think the way that I really wrote her or wanted to write her was kind of like a femme fatale type of thing. But as I was writing it, I was like, she's kind of developing in a different way. This goes back to the distorted loyalties. So she's just so wrapped up in her family. What her family says she has to do, her legacy, her destiny, you know, all these burdens placed upon her shoulders because she has to fight against somebody who they don't even know. But somebody says somebody else was coming to attack them. And so they've been on edge ever since. And so from their point of view, they feel like, oh, I've been hurt, or I've been taken advantage of, or I've had something stolen from me, and my anger is justified, and the way that I avenge myself isn't evil, or even if it is, there's a righteous sense to it. You know, I get it, why these people feel so angry and why it's so hard for them to see a different perspective when for centuries they're on edge. They're like, somebody's coming after us, someone's coming after us, you know? And then it's like, why would that person tell them that? I don't know yet. I might need to change that because that was from a different direction the plot was going. But she has to break away from what her family says is important, because she feels like things should be done one way and they think it should be done another way. But her identity is so wrapped up in them, and she's finding it difficult to have her own identity and like be okay with choosing differently. And that's what it's gonna come down to with a lot of these characters, choosing differently. Are you just gonna follow your loyalties with so-and-so person, so-and-so group or identity, or are you going to think about this yourself? Are you going to use your own brain and just sit and think, is this the right thing for me to do? Everything that I've learned and been learning, is this the right thing for me to do? They're gonna have to make these hard choices. They can sit in their confusion, they can sit in their entitlement of a power they didn't gain by doing something deserving, they didn't earn it. They can feel miffed, or they can just listen. They can rebuild what was shattered, what was taken down, rebuild that community. They can take accountability for their actions. They can say, I'm sorry, and actually mean it. They can, you know, move towards making positive changes to help the land and the people around them. And many of them realize that towards the end. They realize, you know, their focus was very narrow-minded, and they weren't willing to listen to any other voice that did not mirror their narrow-minded perspective. And then they just realized they gotta remove themselves from that mindset. They gotta widen the perspective. Not even just widen it, but really like get off that path and go on to another. And I was watching an Instagram video. I forgot who the person was, but I'll put it up there. And she was discussing this topic of like development in Africa and what it means for a country to be developed, which was a really great video, like her discussion. That was very helpful. And then at the end, she was actually referring to a book, and I'll put the details on the screen. And it discussed what development should be focused on. She was talking about how the point of growth should be focused on like harmony and communion with the land and the people. And I just had like this euphoric like feeling just wash over me, because that's exactly what I am writing. That's the point that I'm trying to make in this second half, and the point that the characters are trying to come to, or that they are coming to. And I think that word, harmony, that's the word I've been missing. That's the word that I've been like, my brain is trying to tell me, you know, harmony. Ooh, I just thought of something really cool. Anyways, yeah, harmony. That is what the characters discover. Their focus is supposed to be on finding that harmony, coming back to communion with each other. They're closer than they think. Their closeness, their ties to one another, their connections, definitions of family are not defined only by blood. It is not defined only by location, but also this power is what puts us in a sense of togetherness. Whether we know it or not, we are already tied to one another. I think that's why it was maybe easy for me to do this second half, because this is how I should have been writing from the beginning. And now I'm getting there. But then I'm adding like other things to the story and more flashbacks to the past. And I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes these things, these scenes, I'm just scared that they might seem too fragmented. Like, oh, here's this, and here's that, and here's this. What's the connection? What's the connection between chapter 2 and chapter 5? You know, the first 10 chapters, do they just seem like fragmented scenes, or is a cohesive story coming out of it? Because I can see from a zoomed out point of view how it all relates. And to me, I want to kind of do it chronologically with the flashbacks, but at the same time, I want to put them with certain POVs. And that is the battle in my mind between chronological organization, which I love, and applicable organization. I don't know if applicable is the right word. Applicable or related organization. So there are certain flashbacks that connect to certain characters, and it makes more sense for those flashbacks to happen in those characters' chapters, or near to their group of chapters or single chapter, than placing it all the way in the beginning simply because of chronological timing. That just won't make sense. That would definitely make it more fragmented, but even still, I'm just trying to make sure that as I go back to the first half, I'm not just writing a whole bunch of fragmented scenes to connect to the second half, but really showing a progression and how things come to a unexpected and sad loss in the middle. Like, all of this came to this, and then because of this, all of this flowed out. And there's so much to do in terms of world building. Like, for the old kingdoms, I've already done some. And I think because I'm a discovery writer, I don't know what's going to be important to the story until after I've written it through. So like I said, I've already done some world building. I've done some visual planning for the setting. But there are other things that I didn't know were going to be a part of the story until I wrote them. And so now I have to go back and yeah. But I think I'm very satisfied with this progress for the story. I also came up with a new title. I'm not gonna say it, but these are the initials. This title really expresses the story. At first it seems like a just a physical description, but as it goes on, it kind of shows you the intensity of the power, the far reach, how deep it goes. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that, writing endings, revising and editing your story, having an idea and then having an idea, thinking that you wrote it out and then realizing you didn't. So now you gotta go back and write the actual story. So that's what I wanted to discuss. Then I'm done with the second half. Anyways, thank you for listening. Have a good day or night.